Life moves pretty fast. If you're not careful, it'll pass you by. What's up, bitches? We got 2 more moments before we grow older. We have escapade, which looks like a nightly escapade, and a soiree. Let us find out what happened. You looked up, noticing the sun was finally setting. You had been trying to delay the end of the day for as long as possible. Evening breeze tickled your nose and you sat on your front porch, munching on fresh watermelon slices. The snack made you happy, you thought watermelon was okay, you were eating it because it's a summer tradition. You weren't even sure why you were eating it. I like watermelon. You picked up another slice. Even though you had already had dinner, you were still delighted to make room for watermelon. You turned to look at Cove. You both had been sitting in comfortable silence for a while now. He sat next to you, close enough for your shoulders to touch. He was happily absorbed in his thoughts and his own slice of watermelon. Chuckling, you watched as his face twisted in discomfort. He had to stop chewing to spit a seed into the bush. Shook your head in disapproval. Ew! You did the same and spat the seeds into the bushes. I bet I can spit a seed further than you. Will it be from these bottom 2? I'm gonna go bottom. He's pretty competitive. Immediately, you shoved the majority of what was left of your watermelon slice into your mouth just to get a seed to prove a point. As soon as you could, you sent that seed sailing into the middle of the street. See that, Cove? Cove burst into laughter that slowed to a wide grin. You could tell he was equal parts surprised and impressed. Can you do that again? I didn't see where it landed. Of course I can. You popped another seed into your mouth and focused on where the last one landed. Setting the seed free, you got it to go even further this time. Not bad. Not bad? You had Cove chuckling again. It was taking a lot of focus to stay looking serious and not to break into laughter yourself. Like to see you try. I will. Cove took in a mouthful of watermelon, face grimacing when he had the seed. Then his expression morphed into a focused look and he sent the seed flying, landing in a similar spot to yours. Wait, you got to do 2. I need another try. He spoke before you could even comment on his non-victory. His determination got you laughing. He quickly sent another closer to where your second one had landed. Seems like we're evenly matched, for now. Yeah, for now. For the next several minutes, you both kept carving seeds from your slices and giggling at the ridiculousness of the competition. Eventually, a truce was called, and both of you went back to eating the neglected watermelon flesh. I wonder if I'll have another slice after this one. That's your 3rd one already. That bad? He's really good. Bumped him with your shoulder. Unable to resist, you knocked him mostly. Drop your watermelon on that ground, bitch! That's mean. You smiled at him. No, it's alright. It's definitely bad. You sighed affectionately. I'll probably shoulder bump. That's where I live. Cove matched your smirk. He gave you a nudge in return. A little while later, Cove flinched, making a confused sound. He slowly put his current slice down on the plate next to him. Are you okay? Yeah. He stood up, head tilted back to look at the sky. His feet took him to the middle of the street. Did you notice anything? What do you mean? I felt a raindrop. Well, the sun's still out. Put down your watermelon slice and hopped off your front step. Immediately, you felt a tap of water in the crown of your head, making you yelp. You're right! Cove was still staring up at the sky, and you watched as he began blinking more rapidly. When he finally turned in your direction, his face was bemused. It's a sun shower. It seemed crazy, but soon you couldn't avoid the drops that began increasing into a light shower. Booming with laughter, Cove kicked off his shoes towards his front door and reveled in the moment. You were excited, you hid from the rain, you were annoyed with the sudden sprinkling. I like the rain, I'm excited. You closed your eyes and threw your head back, letting the rain shower over you. The cool drops felt so right after the warmth of the day. Feeling energized, you ran over to Cove and laughed at how soaked he already was. Not that he cared, because he was so busy spinning in the middle of the street. Following his lead, you spun yourself until you were dizzy. Just as suddenly as the sprinkling started, it stopped, and left you dripping with the smell of wet asphalt and soil tickling your nose. Cove caught your eyes, running a hand through his wet hair. Combing it back, he frowned. It's over. The drops of rain clinging to his face almost could have been mistaken for tears. He sounded that disappointed. Well, it was fun. I wish it lasted longer. I've had enough rain for one summer day. I didn't say anything. I'd probably be like, well, that was fun. Yeah, it's so cool that happened. You then looked over at your door and sighed. You knew Ma wasn't going to be happy to see you trailing water into the house. Cove rubbed his arm awkwardly. He must have been thinking the same thing because he watched you sympathetically. You can dry off at my house if you want. My parents won't. Thanks, let's do that. You're the sweetest guy I know. I don't want to cause trouble. I'm fine. I mean, I feel like he's going to make this comment regardless of if we're flirty or not. So let's go with thanks, let's do that. Yeah? Okay. His whole demeanor brightened. You figured he must have felt relieved to help you avoid getting into any trouble. Cove led you inside and you stayed close to him. You have a ton of spare towels. I've just got to dig them out of the hall closet. Thank you for doing this. What should I do? I think I'm gonna need to borrow some clothes. So this is a pivotal question that warrants discussion. And I feel, since we are getting more flirty, I'm going to do this one. Cove didn't have any of the towels yet, but he came back into eyeshot so you could see him stare at you flatly and roll his eyes. Don't you think my clothes might be kind of big? You laughed and let him go. I'm not joking. It'd be nice to borrow a shirt. I mean, I started it. I'm going to finish it. He raised an eyebrow and a thoughtful expression appeared on his face. Oh, I'm just going to dry my stuff off, but I guess that'd be okay for you. I'll get you something. Oh, whatever, Cove. Whatever. Ruin all my fun. With that, Cove disappeared and returned in no time with towels in his hand, plus what seemed to be a pair of his pajama shirts. It was bright pink color with a dark brown seashell pattern all over. Very him. Here, I hope that works. Thanks. You accepted both the towel and the shirt, wrapped the cloth around your neck temporarily, and took a trip to his bathroom to change. The shirt was old but very soft. You already felt more comfortable just thinking about having it on instead of your current damp attire. You left your shirt over the shower curtain rod to dry, patted yourself down with a towel, and slipped Cove's shirt on. You wrapped your arms around your torso. The change didn't completely fix your predicament, but it was definitely an improvement. Even if it was kind of an off fit, you could make it work. Not wanting to keep Cove waiting, you promptly returned to the living room. He looked up at you to greet you after hearing you'd come back down the hall. How'd it go? Good? Uh-huh. Thank you for it. Just remember to give it back sometime. A sudden call caught both of your attentions. I thought I heard voices. Cove's mom strolled into the living room with a curious grin. What happened here? You're both wet. There was a sun shower. Badass. Cove smiled back at his parent. I do feel that's very fitting of her. She'd just be like, badass. It's raining. We came inside to dry off. My mom still want me going into the house when I'm wet. So I told French fryers to come back here.
That was very sweet of you, baby. She ruffled Cove's wet hair and laughed at the drops of water that shook off. Then a light came to Kyra's eyes. I have an idea. Why don't we go for a drive? It has to beat standing around the house, and you'll air dry in no time. Cove only offered a shrug and a bent smile to his mom. He looked at you for a real answer. Yeah, let's do it. I was not sure. I don't know if my parents want me to. Yeah, let's go. It'll be fun. Fun. This'll be good. Kyra pulled out her cell phone from her pocket to call your moms. They had swapped numbers early in the summer. Head out to the garage. I'll meet you there in just a minute.
My mom can be so pushy. She gets some idea in her head, and that's what she does.
It's okay. Thanks for letting me come.
I didn't do anything.
That wasn't true at all, but you let him get away with it.
Come on.
Cove led you to the car, and Kyra wasn't too far behind. Okay, into the back, you two. Once the three of you were situated inside, Kyra started it and drove out of the residential area. Oh, it's the music! When she hit a main road, the car sped up, and she rolled the back windows down all the way. Cove started laughing as he kept trying in vain to keep his hair from flying into his eyes too much. Meanwhile, you closed your eyes as the wind whipped against your wet clothes. I said the drive was going to be good for getting you air dried.
Yeah, but I didn't agree to this much air.
Cove tried pressing the window button, but nothing happened. His eyebrows furrowed in frustration.
Disabled the back?
Sorry, I can't hear you. Smiling deviously, Kyra turned on the radio and turned it up to be heard over the wind. You laughed and enjoyed the event. You jokingly complained. You were not a fan of the stunt. You danced in your seat to the music. That is me, and I would do that. You recognized the song immediately. Mouthing along with the words and moving about to the beat felt refreshing. Cove shook his head at you until he cracked a smile himself. Slowly he relaxed and bobbed a little to the beat of the song himself. And then, something struck the side of your leg. Several papers were freed from under the car seat and were blown about.
Oh, they can't go out the windows.
Cove began to haphazardly reach around the space to try to get all of it back under wraps. Amused, you helped frantically. You watched him struggle entertained. I would probably help, but be amused by this event.
Mom, close the windows.
Kyra offered no response other than a chuckle. She just kept driving. Cove snatched several papers. I can read. Cove snatched several of the papers out of the air, and you caught others, preventing most of them from flying out the window on your side. You showed Cove your collection while grinning widely. I think I got pretty much all of them. You figured if they were sitting out in the back of the car, they couldn't be important enough to get upset over, but Cove continued looking annoyed. Your smile started to slip, and at that his expression softened.
I hope so. Thanks for helping.
The sun set completely, and at that Kyra rolled up the windows. Cove let out a big sigh and released the random bits of paper he had in his fists.
My mom is crazy.
He ran a hand through his wind-blown hair and laughed with a bit of exasperation. Felt good. You didn't know what was happening anymore. You were fed up. I felt good. Why would you be fed up? That makes you angry all of a sudden? The evening had really turned out to be more interesting than you expected. Grinning, you were happy with your odds with whatever else happened next. Cove watched you with interest until his focus was taken by a new comment from his mom. I bet you're not feeling damp anymore.
No. Now I feel tricked.
You sided with Cove. You sided with Kyra. You stayed quiet. I don't feel the need to interject in this conversation. You shook your head and looked out the window. Kyra continued driving. The radio volume was adjusted for the closed windows, and everyone was sitting more comfortably. Kyra lowered the sound even more after pulling into a red light. She took the chance to turn around and caught her coy smirk. Does anyone know what we drove past during the dry cycle?
No.
A movie theater.
Okay. Most places have that somewhere.
It isn't that late, you know. We can probably still catch a show.
Really, Mom? We don't even know what'll be playing.
That's what makes it fun. I want to see a movie. I'm not sure about that. No way, that's not fun. Heck yeah. Aren't my moms expecting me back soon? Well, it would probably be like, heck yeah, or I want to see a movie. Like, you need to have a sense of adventure, Cove. Okay? Let's go.
Both of you?
He seemed hesitant. You gave him a smile, and Cove eased up a bit. Aw, don't get me wrong. I'm not advocating impulsive behavior every day, but it's important to seize the moment when you can. We might never have another night like this. And don't worry, French fires. I said I'd watch over you for the night, not just 10 minutes or so. I'll put your parents in the loop about hitting the movies as soon as we get there.
I didn't bring any shoes.
You should always bring shoes when you're going out. I'm not wearing any either. It doesn't matter. Well, I'm not entirely excited about the prospect of going in a movie theater without shoes, so I'm going to say I'm not wearing any either. We'll go with that. You lifted your foot up and wriggled your toes so Cove could see.
How are we gonna go inside barefoot?
I don't know. We can't. It doesn't matter. I don't know. You tell me. We'll sneak through quick. No one will notice. You can just do it. Just this once. You bounced in your seat excitedly. It was going to happen. Kyra was right. You never got to do stuff like this. Kyra drove into the theater parking lot, which looks suspiciously like the library parking lot. There's no other cars there. Kyra drove into the parking lot and shut the engine off. With the unbuckling of her seatbelt, she ushered you and Cove out. Despite being hesitant to leave, once outside, Cove burst into a sprint towards the cinema. You were right along with him. The tarmac was still wet from before and cold to stand on with bare feet. Inside, you noticed there were no lines. All the current shows had already started. Kyra paid no mind and strode up towards the counter with some words of encouragement. A third of the running time is ads these days. We haven't missed anything. Ain't that the truth, though, Kyra? Meanwhile, Cove stood next to you awkwardly. He shifted from one foot to the other and constantly kept looking around. His shady behavior would have made him much more likely to get caught than standing still would have if there were people around to notice. It was pretty goofy. You consoled him, you teased him, you complained with him, you kept quiet. I don't want to tease him over that because he's genuinely uncomfortable. You poked Cove's arm to get his attention. It'll be okay, Cove. His expression softened to an appeased smile.
Yeah, thanks.
Eliciting a sigh of relief out of you, Kyra returned with the tickets in hand. She quickly herded you and Cove towards the showing room. I'm sorry for the little hiccup, but hold on. We've almost made it home free. Once we sit down, it'll be smooth sailing. The lights were already off in the showing room, but the movie hadn't started yet. The upcoming movie trailers were still playing. Yes! Keeping her volume in a hushed tone, Kyra couldn't help but burst with excitement over your luck. You followed her down the walkway until she spotted open seats in the middle-ish area of the theater. Kyra pointed at the seats, looking over her shoulder at you and Cove, waiting for input. Cove nodded, and you decided to give her a thumbs up as she led the way. When you reached your seats, Kyra sighed contentedly. Cove gave a sigh of his own and lifted his feet to sit cross-legged instead of keeping them on the floor. He leaned over and whispered to you.
Any idea what the movie is?
No, I didn't hear the name or anything when your mom bought the tickets.
Oh boy.
After a couple more previews, the main event began. It dawned on you quickly that this was a horror film, one about a group of students being haunted by a dangerous ghost. I was psyched. I love horror movies. Going in, you weren't sure what to expect, but this was a fantastic surprise. You hoped this turned out to be good and scary. Glancing over at Cove, you notice he looked less than thrilled with the movie. He does not look too happy about that. He bit down on his bottom lip and stared at the screen with trembling eyes. Cove had never been a fan of ghosts or intentionally frightening things. It was something you learned about him early on. You remained still. You tapped Cove on the shoulder to get his attention. You angled your body in your seat to be closer to him. You grabbed his hand or you covered his ears. Oh, am I going to have embarrassment if I hold his hand? I'm doing it! Your fingers wrapped tight around his, and he jumped slightly at the unexpected touch. But his expression softened when he peeked at you out of the corner of his eye. You gave your hand a squeeze to silently voice support. That made you feel good. Sometimes the other people in the theater screamed or jeered or clapped, depending on what was happening. Your heart was pounding in your chest when the movie finally came to an end. The main character had resolved the hauntings, but in a dark conclusion, they didn't make it out alive. You stayed and let the credits roll and for the theater to clear out. Then it was time to head back to the car. Both you and Cove took the same seats in the back of the car again. Even though it was late, Kyra was exuding an upbeat, cheerful energy. What a great flick!
Yes.
Wasn't bad. End.
You enjoyed it, baby?
No, I mean, it's hard to explain. It got really tense, and I guess that's the point of horror stuff. But I kinda didn't want to have to feel like that. Now it's all over, though. Sorta cool to do.
That's so great. French fires, how are you feeling? It was awesome, it was terrible, it was bad, it was alright. Like, it was awesome. Kyra smiled at that.
I still can't believe they died. It's nice when things aren't obvious and you don't really know how it'll end until you see it. But I wanted it to go better.
I demand a happier ending. I love how it fell apart when it seemed like things were going to be okay. I saw it coming. I nodded. It was so lame. Well, I'm pretty good at guessing endings. So I'm going to say I saw it coming.
No way.
A lot of horror things have ended like that. You and Cove spent the rest of the car ride absorbed in conversation about the movie. So, who's hungry? You were surprised when you realized Kyra didn't drive you home, but to a drive-through burger restaurant instead. I'm not hungry. I shook my head no. Yeah, you nodded. Why not? I will always eat a tasty burger. That's where I live. That's the spirit. Get whatever you want. Oh, hamburger, cheeseburger, chicken sandwich, spicy chicken sandwich, French fries, onion rings, salad, chicken nuggets, oh, matzo sticks, soda, milkshake, ice cream cone, chocolate chip cookie. Well, I gotta get a cheeseburger, and I gotta get some matzo sticks, and I would probably also get French fries. Don't judge me, monkey! And a soda. That's where I live. Is that alright?
Of course.
It's A-okay. Cove chuckled a little at the size of your list, but had no disapproval over it. Don't judge me, monkey! Kyra pulled up to the window and ordered what you asked for first. She then decided to order one of everything on the value menu.
Whoa, what are you gonna do with all of that?
Eat it.
Really?
The whole menu? Even after French fries picked most of that already?
That's right. There are only maybe 10 things on it, and they're about $1 each. I can swing it, and besides, whatever we don't finish, I'm gonna feed to your dad. He'll be in heaven. Cove sighed affectionately at his mother's antics. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. A few minutes later, Kyra exchanged her money for multiple bags of food, which she quickly tossed to both of you in the back seat. She then drove off into the night.
Can you pass me something?
What should I grab?
Surprise me.
You chose one of the wrapped sandwiches and handed it to her. You had no idea if it was a burger or something else.
Thank you very much.
Accepting that this was happening, Cove shrugged and started pulling food out of the bag for himself. Cove ended up with some onion rings and he happily munched on them. You selected something randomly. You made sure I would grab something I liked because I don't want to waste food. You weren't even questioning Kyra's crazy ride anymore. The adventure continued, and you were so preoccupied in the back that you almost didn't realize the car had stopped. Kyra turned to look over her shoulder.
Okay, party people. It seems like we've reached the end of the road.
Confused, you checked out the window and saw nothing except an empty road ahead. You noticed it, the now leaving sign. Kyra took you through the entire town.
What are we doing here?
Kyra turned the car around and parked it along the side of the road.
I think both of you could use a break to stretch your legs, and I doubt anyone is going to come through here at this time of night. Besides, I need to make a call, so go on.
Cove shook his head and got out of the car without a fight.
I don't want to sit in a car.
You got out and caught up to Cove. He was busy looking at the stars and stretching his arms while he strolled around. You thought being here was excited. Being here was pretty cool. You didn't care. You felt worried. You were mad. You were tired. I'm gonna say worried because this has a bit of a history for him. Your mom said things were fine, but I just don't know. Think my mom's will be mad?
Maybe, but definitely not at you.
He answered immediately and honestly enough that you believed him completely. You could tell by his expression that he felt bad. At least your mom has been calling them.
Yeah, your parents have more rules than my parents. They're not really mean.
Shortly after, you noticed Cove's expression changed. His eyebrows furrowed, and it seemed like he was thinking hard about what he wanted to say.
I'm sorry for my mom being crazy tonight. She isn't always like this, seriously.
Why is she being like this now?
I think she feels like she has to get out there and do things with me while she can. She wants to make them memorable. This visit has been really different than the others. It didn't start off good.
Thinking about how Kyra's trip began this summer, you could understand why Cove was thinking along those lines. She probably wanted all the trouble to be worth it in the end. You having a good time? Okay, I get it. She shouldn't have made us a part of it. You nodded. She's giving you a taste of your own medicine. I'm going to ask him if he's having a good time. Because, making us part of it, we still had fun.
Yeah, it's still weird having her and Dad in the same house, but I love her. She's my mom. I like hanging out with her most of the time.
It went silent between you both, so you jumped when you heard the sound of a car door closing.
Cove, French fires.
You turned to see Kyra by the driver's seat waving. The sight brought a smile to Cove's face, and she quickly made her way over to where you were both standing.
Thanks for waiting.
I didn't mind.
How did I end up with such a polite boy?
She ruffled his hair, and Cove lowered his head, accepting the compliment. You thought about how interesting it was to see how Cove interacted with his mom. And then the memory hit you. The first summer you and Cove came to this very spot in his runaway attempt to find his way back to his mom. And now, you were all here together. Kept that to yourself, you whispered about it to Cove, you said it out loud. I'm gonna
can talk to Cove about it. I really don't like any of these options, so yeah. Taking a step closer to Cove, you lean in close to share the moment just with him. Isn't it strange that your mom took us here? This is where you went to try to see her when we moved to Sunset Bird. Cove flinched and his eyes darted over to his mom, worried that she'd heard. When he was satisfied she didn't, he turned back.
Yeah, weird. She doesn't know that happened. At least I'm pretty sure she doesn't.
Really?
Dad likes to tell her things are fine, so she doesn't worry.
Well, I'm not gonna tell her. That's between them. Cove looked at you gratefully, and you shared a conspiratorial smile.
Anyway, kinda cool to be here right on the edge of town.
Exactly. We're standing on a precipice. I think so too. I don't really see what's different about it. You didn't have a strong opinion. Yeah, I think so. I knew you'd get it. It's good to appreciate these times and places. Kyra let out a big breath of air. We should probably call it a night, huh? Yes, let's go. Finally, you shrugged. You were disappointed it was actually over. I don't know. You're the adults. A part of you was surprised Kyra was finally throwing in the towel. Kyra shyly smiled and gestured to the car. Quietly, you all made your way back to it. Cove naturally followed you, taking the seat nearby in the back with a collection of fast food bags all strewn about. You rested your head into the seat as the car roared to life. As you did, Cove leaned in close to whisper.
You can talk to your moms if you get mad about tonight for some reason. My mom's idea, you didn't have a choice.
Thanks, I might need it. It was worth it, even if they get mad. That's where I'm gonna go. Your mouth pulled into the biggest grin, getting a laugh out of Cove.
If you say so. Also, don't worry about bringing the shirt back when you get home. You can just keep it.
Oh, boy hoodie! Boy shirt! Until tomorrow? Simply shook his head. Thanks, you're the best. Secretly, you had hoped, yeah, that's me. I would probably say good, you weren't gonna get it back though, so yeah, that's where I'm gonna go. Cove smiled, amused, but said nothing else. The drive home was smooth and uneventful. The radio was off completely and you felt your eyelids getting heavy. Oh, I sleep on the car or I sleep on Cove. Well, I'm gonna rest my head on Cove. We're getting flirty, bitches! You were too tired to keep your head up and it felt quite comfortable there. Cove didn't have any issues. He must have been exhausted too. You were happy to stay close like that, warm and comfortable. When you opened your eyes, you expected to still be in the car, not your bedroom. Somehow already morning. You couldn't remember how you'd ended up there. Sitting up in bed, you thought about how last night was quite an experience. It would have almost felt like a dream if you weren't still wearing the shirt Cove had let you take. It definitely happened. And you were glad that you got to have a spontaneous escapade in this summer. You'd willed away the morning, doing whatever struck your fancy, and now you were recharging with lunch. Nothing on the horizon, you were free to spend as much or as little time on your plate as you wanted. It was while you were thinking on all the possibilities for your afternoon that your moms approached you. Hi, French fries. You okay? Mouth full, you nodded in reply. To your surprise, they both sat with you at the table. Based on the time, you had wondered if they were joining you for a meal, but neither of them brought anything. Great. We wanted to have a little chat with you. It's about a boy in my loft. Is that what it's about? The qualifier little did nothing to downplay the situation. Your chewing slowed as your eyes widened, looking from one parent to the other. Anything that required both of them to talk to you must be something big.
was unsettling. You perked up your mind full of exciting possibilities. Irritated at the interruption, you groaned. I mean, they look happy right now. They don't look angry. We'll go excited. A vacation, maybe? Or a pet? A revelation that they were actually undercover agents? You leaned in, eager to learn more. There's a soiree at the Cypress tomorrow night. Your ma and I are going. Cypress was the country clubs your moms were part of, where Elizabeth played golf. It seemed like every other month I can read. It seemed like every other month they had some event or another, all with fancy names like soiree. You nodded eagerly, anxious for Mom to get to the good stuff. Mom chuckled at your poorly concealed reaction. Leaning in, Ma took your hand and squeezed it. We've decided to make the night a bit special. Elizabeth's going to be allowed to stay home fully alone for the first time. You'll be coming to the party with us. It's Elizabeth's night to party with no family around. Not yours. Sorry. You gotta wait a couple more years. That's not fair. You were disappointed. All right, I can go. What's the soiree going to be like? I will say, all right, I can go. Your mom's beamed at you. I'm glad you're so understanding. And don't worry, we're not leaving you out. We want you to have a special night, too. Intrigued, you grinned at your moms and listened. Your parents shared a look across the table, cleared your throat, reminding them that you were waiting. They couldn't keep dropping such hints and then turn coy when the conversation was about to get good. Since it's a pretty fancy party, it's still chaperoned, and attendees are allowed to bring a guest. We thought it might be a nice opportunity for you to invite someone yourself as a date if you want. Oh, I'm gonna have a date with Cove, motherfuckers, bring it on. Your eyes widened as the words sunk in. Your mom's continued, and it was a struggle to keep up. Even though we'll be at the party too, you don't need to worry about us getting in your way. Feel free to eat, dance, enjoy the music as you see fit. But no leaving the property. Ma nodded at Mom's interjection. Yes, as long as you don't leave the party. If you'd rather just bring a friend, that's A-okay too. That's amazing. How disappointing. You didn't know how to react. I mean, that's pretty cool. That's nice. You must have lit up because your parents shared an amused look again. The soiree isn't until tomorrow, so you've got time. Just let us know your plans before we're heading out. And that's all. We'll leave you to your lunch now. Your moms rose from the chairs in unison, disappearing to another part of the house. You barely noticed their departure. All you could think of is what just happened. The remains of your lunch stared up at you from your plate. Felt you should finish eating. You had lost your appetite. You were glad to go back to eating. Whenever I get really excited or really upset, I don't feel like eating. So I'm going to go with the middle there. The last thing on your mind was food. You rose from the table and cleared your plate as you tried to untangle the thoughts in your head. Even though you'd relocated to your bedroom, your head was stuck on the conversation that had unfolded at the dining table downstairs. You knew that having someone come as a friend would be best. You wanted to be a date. You didn't want to bring anyone. It was too soon to pick one way or the other. I'm going on a motherfucking date, bitches. The prospect of having your first date made it impossible to sit still. You couldn't help but jiggle your foot as you laid on your bed, contemplating the possibility. That night, being a date would mean actually asking someone out. The little you knew of that came from what you'd seen on TV and movies, and what you heard from kids at school. Your moms hadn't even entertained the thought of you dating until now. You went over possible words and phrases in your head, setting up scenarios and smooth segues before tearing them down and trying something else. Sighing, you shifted position on the bed, resting your arms on the windowsill.
A flock of birds caught your eye and led your gaze as they crossed the sky. Watch the birds grow smaller and less distinct until they disappeared from sight. Like the snap of a hypnotist's fingers, you were released from the trance and left with a goal of your own. You were going to take a walk. You ambled through the familiar streets of your neighborhood, picking your path at whim. It was quiet as ever, with tourists choosing to congregate in the shopping area near the beach rather than venture into the sleepy residential zones. You continued down the road and soon found yourself at the shore. The fresh, salty air hit you first, rolling to meet you over the grassy dunes that tickled your legs, followed by the familiar view of the sea stretching out across the horizon. You came to a halt. A lone figure was standing in the ocean, the water reaching up to his. Though he had his back to you, you recognized the familiar silhouette as Cove's. It made sense you'd find him here. He always was in his element by the sea. You had no idea if he heard your arrival or if it was a coincidence, but he looked over his shoulder and your eyes met. You smiled, you waved him over, you called out, you headed closer. I'm not gonna be a freak and be like, come here! I'm just gonna go over there. We're just gonna walk nonchalantly. Though Cove was sure to return to shore after seeing you, it wasn't fair to make him do all the work. Cove grinned at you from over his shoulder before turning around to wade back to the shore.
French fires, what are you up to?
My moms are taking me to a soiree tomorrow at their country club.
Soiree? Down King?
Cove tried to show a level of enthusiasm, keeping his grin pinned in place. You could tell that he held no envy towards your plans. You're coming too? Will you come with me? You don't have to come if you don't want to. I'm attending by myself. I'm going to ask him if he'll come with me. I could just be like, you're coming with me, bitch.
Oh, can bring someone?
My mom said it was okay for someone to come along. You watched him process the offer, his eyes becoming far away for just a moment before he broke into a smile.
Sure, I'll come.
That's great, thanks. You breathed a sigh of relief. It could be a date. It could be a date, Cove. Cove laughed, brushing his hair from his face. When you didn't join in or continue the joke, he cocked his head.
You're not serious, right?
Well, I was, and then you laughed at me. My parents also said I can have a real date for the first time at the soiree tomorrow.
I don't think it could be a real date with me.
That's true. What if it was a practice? Yeah, for practice. Just a practice date. Winkety wink.
That's something you're supposed to practice?
I don't know. But wouldn't it be a good idea to try out a date with someone you're friends with before going out with someone you actually like that way? He rubbed his arm.
But what would I do differently to make it a date? Would I need to buy you flowers or something?
Sniggering, you imagine Cove turning up with a huge bouquet of flowers and his hair slicked back. He would look weird with his hair. He's got the McConaughey going on. If that's what you want to do, I won't stop it.
So, I just need to go and we'll say it's a date?
Yeah.
Alright. I can try it. Only for you French fires.
Damn right you will, bitch. You smiled widely. This was going to be a pretty special night after all. You clapped your hands together, ready to share the resolution with your parents. Can you come to my house right now? So we can let my moms know the plan.
No problem.
Cove went to where he discarded his things in the sand, tugging his shirt over his head and slipping on a pair of shoes before joining you and setting off home. The two of you stepped inside the front door of your house. given the proximity you'd grown up. It was an action you'd taken together countless times, but you thought yourself lucky to have such a great friend living close by. At the sound of the door opening, your mom poked her head into the hall. "Ah, Cove, it's you! What a surprise!" She chuckled at her own joke. Cove was always there, and she knew how close the two of you were. Bringing anyone other than him back would have been an actual surprise.
I'm Mrs. Noisyface.
"So I take it Cove's going to be our guest for tomorrow night?" "Yep." "And is it a date?" Her voice was light, teasing, and it was painful.
I guess it is.
Mom arched an eyebrow in the vague agreement. Cove became more sheepish about it after seeing someone's reaction to the situation.
It's supposed to be practice.
"I see. Since you said I'm allowed to have a date, we're going to have one with each other before we go out with someone else. Then we'll know what it's like." "Makes sense to me. Okay, Cove, I'll give your dad a call and get everything squared away." She walked off to make the call. You turned to Cove, who offered you a nervous smile.
I'm gonna go so I can talk to my parents when they're done with the call.
"Okay, see you tomorrow." Cove nodded. There was a small smile on his lips, far less strained than he'd given you moments before. You hoped that meant he'd recovered from your mom's joke.
Bye.
And the rest of the afternoon passed by just like that. Back in your room, your mind was alight with visions of tomorrow night. The soiree was something, but not nearly as exciting as going on your first date. You were thrilled that Cove had actually said yes, that he was your genuine date to a party. You hugged your knees to your chest, overawed by the thought the night couldn't come soon enough. The evening of the soiree had arrived, the daylight hours having slipped away in a blur. Up in your bedroom, you were getting ready for the big event. That was your intention, at least. You hadn't settled on an outfit. Stationed in front of your wardrobe, you scanned over the clothing you had at your disposal. Though Ma had mentioned this event was a bit dressier than a normal get-together, you didn't necessarily have to comply. No, I like to dress up. We'll do that." You attempted to decide between the nicer pieces in your wardrobe, the ones that rarely had a chance to come out. You decided to dress formally because felt like you had to. You honestly like dressing up. You're dressing to impress. You ought to put the things you own to use. You wanted to make Ma happy. I do honestly like dressing up. There was something magical about the sheen of an elegant fabric and the cut of formal wear. Something that transformed everyone into a more sophisticated person than their normal selves. To start, you decided to wear a dress, a blouse. I would wear a dress. The one you picked was light and had a sheen. The silky material seemed to glide through your fingers as you took it from your wardrobe. It was a perfect fit for a summer evening party. You began to get dressed, your fingers working stiff zips and awkward fastenings. It felt different against your skin, reminding you with every movement that you were dressed up. Whatever happened tonight, you were pleased that you'd gotten the opportunity to wear this. Now dressed, you gave yourself a final glance over before heading downstairs, ready to head out. Found your moms already waiting in the living room. They were putting the finishing touches on their outfits. Ma strapping her heel into a stiletto shoe and Mom trying to fasten a bracelet single-handedly. They looked up as you entered. "French fries, you look so nice. Don't you think so, Pam?" "Thanks for dressing up, French fries. I hope the party will be prepared for your arrival. You look sharp." Mom was still struggling with the bracelet. You lent a hand, literally, by taking one side and holding it as she secured the clasp. "Thanks, kiddo." Mom then glanced over at the clock on the wall. Seeing where the hands were pointing, a frown creased her face. "When's Cove gonna be here? Do you know?" He's getting here at 7, soon probably. I'm not sure. I'm picking him up or I'll go get him. I'm honestly not sure. We did not discuss such things. Mom pursed her lips as she stared at the hands ticking by on the clock. All right. If he's not here by 5, I'll give his house a call. Elizabeth flittered down the stairs, her eyes narrowed. You're still here? Yes, but not for much longer, hopefully. Wait, I know you're excited, but we haven't said goodbye, and I want to go over how things are going to play out. Elizabeth sighed as Mom began listing the rules, ticking them off on her fingers. No ordering takeout or other deliveries. Can't have anyone else come over. Uh-huh. She nodded, resigned to her fate, listening to a set of rules she could predict without so much as a glance at a crystal ball. If anything happens, you call us or you go across the street to the Holdens. Keep the noise down. This house might be empty, but there are people all around the neighborhood. Usual house rules still apply. Don't do anything you wouldn't do if we weren't here. And we'll be back no later than 11:30. But we'll call if there are any issues, so don't tie up the phone all night. Right. All done? Can you go now? Ma strode over and swept Elizabeth up in a hug. Your sister let out a small noise, her eyes widening, and suddenly looked much less like the smug teenager she acted like. You're such a big girl now, I can't believe it. Elizabeth rolled her eyes. This wasn't the quick departure that she'd been hoping for. Any chance of it ending soon vanished as Mom joined her in a hug. Neither can I. I feel like it was only yesterday that... Elizabeth groaned, trying to cut the reminiscing off without success. Laughed and steered well clear of the love pile. You felt sorry for your sister. You were glad you weren't the one getting the treatment. You joined in the hug. I would join in. I would give her a hug. Mom and Ma held out their arms as you approached, welcoming you into the hug. Elizabeth whined, eager for this to come to an end already. Can you all just go? Jeez. Your family disentangled from the hug in time to catch the doorbell ringing. Oh, our guest of honor is here. She raced over to the door. As Ma predicted, Cove had arrived, and he was ushered inside. You look very nice, Cove. Cove froze for a moment before acting as if nothing had been said. I see he went with the classic black on black. He looked around the room, searching for a way out of that conversation before his eyes met yours. Cove's lips squeezed into a smile. As you reciprocated, the tension in his face seemed to ease. Hi. Hi. Cove seemed to take your appearance in with a glance, and he smiled. You look good. I like the outfit. His words took you by surprise. It wasn't often that Cove complimented on your appearance, but you were happy to accept the compliment. You're looking good too. I wish I could say the same to you. What is that you're wearing? You look wonderful. I'll probably, say the same thing, but too. He flinched, not ready for the compliment to be returned. Thanks. Now that Mom had finished reiterating the rules to Elizabeth, who then scurried off to the sanctuary of her room, she came over to greet Cove. Hi, Cove. Nice to have you along for the ride. Thank you for letting me come. Oh, it's no trouble. You're always welcome. Mom's eyebrows rose in twin lines of concern. Let's all remember that for the foreseeable future, we'll be neighbors who have to see each other every day. Cove looked helplessly at your mom. Luckily, Ma came over and rescued him. Mom's the cautious sort, sweetie. You don't need to look so worried. Mom smiled reassuringly. She didn't intend to scare him. Ma laid a hand on her shoulder. We should get to the car. There's nothing fashionable about being late. As you made to follow your mom, Cove held out his hand. Pausing, you waited for an explanation. He wilted under the force of your attention, letting out a long sigh. Why did you hold his hand? What the fuck is wrong with you?
My dad and mom insisted that it was kind of a date and kind of a fancy party. I needed to give you something for inviting me.
Is he gonna hand me a 20? Bro. The conclusion of the story caught you by surprise. You blinked, unsure if you'd slacked too much in your own preparation for tonight. Got me a present?
Not really, just this.
Cove reached behind himself to take something out of his back pocket. His hand returned to view with him holding a single, small, white poppy by the stem. He brought me a flower! He offered it to you without meeting your gaze, finding the ritual too embarrassing to face head on. That's my favorite. This is nice. I don't like this flower, you said jokingly. Or honestly. Both of those are mean. I don't know if this is, it's not, in real life, it is not my favorite flower. That would be lilac. So I'm going to say this is nice. Cove smiled in relief, and it seemed he was finally able to lighten up again.
I thought you might say that.
You didn't need to do this, Cove. I'm sorry I didn't get you anything. Thank you, Cove. You left the conversation, or you said, you're so wonderful. Ooh, it's gonna be thank you, or you're so wonderful. Probably thank you. I don't want to embarrass him too much. We'll go with thank you.
It's done.
Yeah? And all 30 up in here. Then, you accepted the flower from him, Cove straightening himself out in response.
So, we're gonna be late if you keep standing here.
Oh, right! We better hurry. You pulled up at the country club. The sun had sunk deep into the horizon, the last of its light sleepily warming the oncoming night. Your moms led the way to the space around the back where the event was being held. The place had been transformed through decoration, with smart tablecloths and elegant ribbons contributing to a festive atmosphere. Musicians dressed in matching black and white were setting up their instruments and flicking through pages of sheet music. And, as promised, there was a table covered in plates of carefully prepared food. Destination reached, your parents rounded on you and Cove. Things haven't kicked off yet, but don't let that stop you from enjoying yourselves. Have fun. We'll be around if you need us.
See you later.
Bye. Cove waved your moms off. Once they retreated a distance away, you found him watching you expectantly.
What now?
I don't know, Cove, you tell me! His voice was light, but from his wide eyes and their nervous glances, you could tell that he was feeling out of his depths. We'll have to wait for some things to start, like the band, but there's stuff going on already. Cove perked up at that.
Oh, do you want to do any of those? Whatever they are.
You introduced Cove to people in your country club, took a seat to relax, you checked the snacks at the refreshment table. I don't know how many people I know at this club, so probably snacks. Snacks are good. You can go get some food now, even if the music hasn't started yet.
That's okay? It's not too soon?
Yeah, I only like these parties because of the free food. I knew you'd come for the free food. Yep, I wonder what they'll have this time. No one will mind, really, you simply nodded. Yes, I wonder what they'll have.
Let's go find out.
The two of you wandered over to the refreshment table. With it being early in the night, it had barely been touched. The two of you wandered over to the refreshment table. With it being early in the night, it had barely been touched, and the plates were nearly as pristine as when they'd left the kitchens. The offerings were all tiny and bite-sized, ready to be picked up and sampled. It was immediately apparent that there was plenty to choose from. Just from the level of care with which it was presented, it was clear that it was fancy stuff. Cove stared at a plate, then another, confused.
I think I know some of this.
I don't. Gross. And only some of it is good. This is good stuff. This is good stuff.
Is it?
Yeah. You picked one of the nearby morsels and presented it in front of Cove to observe.
It looks like a slice of the world's smallest loaf of bread with stuff on top.
It has to be small, so you've got room to try a lot of different things. Cove's eyes were wide as you guided him through what was in offer. It made you feel sophisticated. Cove squared his shoulders off as he geared up for a match. His stance was familiar from all the times you'd seen him preparing for some sporting event.
I'm gonna try it.
He picked up a plate and took one appetizer, then another, and another. Soon, you realized he was taking one of every single type. You're taking everything?
Uh-huh. Why not?
I'm with him on that. I was just gonna say, literally, what kind of question is that? You take one of everything. You might be stuffed afterward, but that was a problem for your future self. Right now, you are going to enjoy the feast to the full. Cove nibbled his way through everything. Cypress had. The results of the endeavor were mixed. He was revolted by some of the things he tried, openly screwing up his face and rushing to find a drink to wash the taste away. Yet the bad experiences didn't stop him from plowing on, moving on to the next snack with an open mind. There were some foods he was neutral about, dismissing them with a shrug, but best of all were his reactions when he stumbled across something good. Each time caught him by surprise, his expression morphing from wary curiosity to skeptical interest before making way for astonished enjoyment. Regardless of how he felt about what he was currently eating, you could tell he was having a good time, just being free to eat whatever he laid his eyes on. You thought that was nice, too. After going through a round of sampling, you continued to munching on the refreshments while waiting for music. Let's do something else. God, he's gonna get super uncomfortable if I introduce him to people. I'm gonna do it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I know most of these people because I've been brought here a lot over the years. You can meet them. He frowned. Talking to strangers was not generally his preferred activity. See? No, back Cove! It doesn't matter if you make a good impression or not. They'll be curious about you no matter what. You beckoned for him to follow you and meet the other guests. Most of the attendees skewed significantly older or considerably younger than the two of you, with only a few people around your age. Despite his apprehension, Cove was cordial with his interactions. Not that there weren't any difficulties. Sorry, could you repeat your name? I'm sorry. Could you repeat your name?
It's Cove.
Cove? They rolled the word over on their tongues, clearly surprised. How unusual, but lovely, of course. As you'd expected, there was interest in who you'd brought to the party and what your relationship with him was. Friend Friars, good to see you. Is this your date? Cove looked at you to explain the atypical pseudo-date you found yourself on tonight. I brought him as a date for the party, but he's just my friend. Still, some people focused on the important things. How you were dressed. Don't you look snappy in that outfit? It's just one person who's like walking around and you just find him at different places. You've scrubbed up well. With the basic necessities taken care of, you kept on chatting. No, Cove's clearly uncomfortable. Let's not do that. We should pick out a table.
Okay.
You found a place to sit at the edge of the party area, where it was quieter with few people bustling around. You pulled out a chair and sat down. Cove, already seated, was stretching.
These clothes are kind of uncomfortable.
He flexed an arm at the elbow, frowning, before twisting it back behind him.
Yeah? My arms can't move the same as normal. Like I'm gonna rip it if I do anything.
I don't mind it. Yeah, it's the worst. I think it suits you. I'm gonna say I think it suits you.
Really? Okay. Thanks.
He toyed with one cuff of his shirt, wedging a finger between the fabric and his skin. Now that you had a spot of your own, stayed chatting, you moved on to something else. We can chat. In no time at all, the sun set in full. The lights faded away, and the opening notes of the band's first song rang out. You and Cove stopped what you were doing, turning to contemplate the party that had been steadily unfurling while you were distracted. It was much busier now, both in terms of people and activity. The first steps were taken onto the dance floor, some tentative, others eager. And if the band hadn't been playing, the constant level of chatter would have ensured it wasn't a quiet night. With the party now in full swing, your options had increased. Wanted to see what your moms were up to. You watched the band platform. I'm gonna ask him to dance. Get up here and dance with me, motherfucker. So would you like to dance maybe? Hey, Cove, let's dance. Cove, can I have the pleasure of your company on the dance floor? Come on, it's time to dance. I'd like to dance with you if that's okay. I think that's a good way to ask. Cove raised his eyebrows in surprise at your hesitant invitation. Even though it was a dance party, he hadn't anticipated this outcome. You watched him shake off his shock and smile delicately.
I have to, don't I? It's a date.
That's right, you don't have to, I guess? Only if you want to. Yeah, like, no pressure, bud. Like, only if you want to. Still smiling, Cove carefully held out his hand to you. You hesitated for a moment, giving him opportunity to rescind the offer, before accepting and heading out with him to the dance floor. You took your places, standing before each other, hands still entwined. Frowning, Cove assessed the situation, trying to puzzle it out like a math problem, before putting his remaining free hand on your shoulder. Where did my hands go? I'm not sure what to do with my hands. He repositioned his hand. You were happy with that. No, bitch, you will put your hand on my waist. Gently, you took his hand from your shoulder and moved it lower down for the dance. He smiled shyly at you, and his grip on your other hand tightened. You gazed up at Cove, who seemed suddenly aware of the few inches he had over you. Cove awkwardly glanced down at you from the corner of his eyes, looking most apologetic. The music had begun. You both moved, eagerly trying to catch up to it, but your feet took you in opposite directions. Fumbling, the two of you shuffled from side to side, attempting to mirror each other's movements, but always winding up at odds. It was difficult. Cove was struggling just coordinating his own lips to the rhythm, let alone matching your movement. When Cove's foot ghosted over yours, it was decided it'd be safest for everyone if you simply swayed to the tune. You rooted yourself to the floor, your torso gently moving to the sounds. Grateful, Cove kept his movements small and subtle in the same way. All was fine for a little while. You weren't going to win any dancing accolades with Cove, but it was pleasant to simply share the experience with him. Cove stepped out of sync with the music knocking against you, flinched back, nearly pulling you over in the process. You took a hand from him and held it up, halting proceedings so you could both get your bearings once more. Should have stuck to the hokey pokey. It's okay, dancing is harder than I thought. I'm signing you up for dancing lessons. Oh man, I would say like all of these. I'm probably gonna reassure him. He needs a lot of reassurance. We'll go with that. Instead of fully accepting the reassurance, Cove looked off. Thanks. Oh, he's all embarrassed. Poor little Cove.
Then you took Cove's hand once more and gingerly resumed swaying to the music. Cove reluctantly followed suit, his steps small and apprehensive, and he mumbled something quietly.
This is a long song.
God damn it, Cove! Just enjoy me! Why can't I have any fun with you, ever? Weren't sure how to take that. Whether it meant that something was wrong, or if Cove really didn't like dancing. Or if he didn't like dancing with you, specifically. Right? Way to get in my head, you motherfucker! It made the last couple of minutes of the song uncomfortable, as you weighed up what to do and what to say. When the musicians laid their instruments down, Cove dropped your hands as if it were burning him. He trailed off the dance floor as quickly as he could without breaking into an outright one. Oh no! Does he hate me? In truth, you'd bet even that was faster than most people here could manage. You had difficulty tailing him before he could get lost in the crowd. When you caught up, he said nothing. You tried to get him into doing something else, but eliciting anything from him right now was impossible. You focused over Cove, wondering how he was finding the evening. He sighed. It was so quiet and unobtrusive that you wouldn't have caught it if you hadn't been watching him. His gaze was roaming. With how far away his eyes seemed, whatever he was searching for couldn't be found at this party. He turned to face you before you could say anything.
I want to sit down.
He can do that. Cove began to move and you instinctively followed him. Yet instead of taking a seat at one of the many free tables as you'd expected, Cove ignored them as he purposely strode out of the party area. Where are you going? Your call didn't seem to register with him as he continued forward, out onto the greens of the golf course. You went after him, trying to watch out for the uneven ground underfoot. The clods of earth dislodged in golf games were perfect for snatching unwary feet in the daylight. Up ahead, Cove didn't appear to have any difficulty traversing the uneven land. Oh, he's so sad! Oh no! I broke him! He settled down on one of the little hills of the golf course. You joined him, still unsure over what was going on. Are you alright, and why are we here? What's wrong? Why'd you drag us out here? Look at us breaking the rules. Yeah, like, are you alright? Like, yeah, I'm just gonna ask him, like, what's wrong? What's up? Cove startled, as if he'd acted on instinct and your question had brought him around to reality again.
Oh, sorry. And it's okay. You can go back to the party.
You didn't budge from your spot. From here, the party was just a glowing haze in the distance. You didn't want to leave him behind. You were glad to take a break. Yeah, I don't want to leave him here. I also want to know if he's, like, mad at me. I'm not going to leave you here. And I'm not going to drag you back if you don't want to.
Oh, thanks.
Now that Cove was more at ease, you tried to find out what had caused him to take flight in the first place. Did the party make you uncomfortable? It upset you that Cove had been unhappy attending an event with you, but logically you knew that the issue was likely the event rather than your company. Do I know that though? Was it the dancing? His abrupt departure from that was another indicator that something had gone awry.
No,
He shook his head empathetically.
not anything I did tonight. Definitely not anything you did either.
You nodded, relieved to have your suspicions confirmed. Cove attempted to fill in the gaps of understanding.
I didn't want to think about going back into the party. I just feel ready to go home.
To your home planet. Don't try running that far. You kept quiet. I'm sorry if you're not having fun. Yeah, that's probably what I would say. Like, I'm sorry if you're not having fun. I wouldn't offer to get my mom's because, again, he likes to be really independent. So we're going to go with that. I'm sorry if you're not having fun. Cove stared off and his words felt just as distant.
It's okay.
Cove sat there quietly, gazing out into the shadowy hills and valleys of the golf course. A comfortable warm wind rustled between you, tousling his hair. It was so far away from the hubbub of the party you could even make out the quiet sounds of crickets chirping.
Kind of like how we first met. Remember?
Yeah, of course I do. How could I forget? No. It's like, yeah, of course I do. Your impression of Cove during those early days hadn't been fond.
So weird. It was a long time ago now.
You thought back to the day when Cove first arrived in the neighborhood. He had run away from Mr. Holden, taking solace in the hills behind your house. That had been late, too, on a clear night like today. Looking at the sky, you wondered if the stars that were looking down were the same ones as then. Cove's face was brighter, though you could still see signs of the strain that had caused him to depart from the soiree. When he'd first sat down, he had curled up like a pill bug, hunched over, knees pressed to his chest and arms wrapped around them. He unwound as you'd been talking, straightening up, his hands free. It was as though the two of you had constructed your own little world away from everything else, and he was beginning to perk up. The small smile that had crept onto his face was quickly ushered away by a frown.
I can't believe I'm on a date.
Cole followed up the statement before you could react. He spoke in a distantly whispered tone, as though you were the only one in the world he could share those words with.
After I said I wanted to come, I wanted to take it back. Not because I really didn't want to, but because, I don't know. It seemed like a big deal. It made me feel bad, somehow. I started feeling like I couldn't do it, even though I just wanted to do it. I guess sort of like having a presentation in front of the class, even though it was just me and you doing something, like we always do.
He charged on, his words streaming out.
I still could do it because thinking about not being there and you, what you might think if I did take it back, made me feel way worse than whatever else I felt.
Yeah, that probably would have hurt my feelings, I'm just saying.
I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm giggling because that I'm sorry sounds like my voice over there.
I'm sorry, French Fires. Sorry I can't just deal with stuff like this and have to make everything so complicated.
You don't need to apologize. You hung your head sadly. I'm sorry it made you feel bad. I don't want you to be here if you don't want to be here. Let's not say that. That's bad. You smiled. You didn't have to come. You could have told me. I'm going to say you don't need to apologize. That's where I'm going to go. Took his hand. You placed a hand on his shoulder. You leaned against him. You ruffled his hair. You hoped he would feel better. Again, this is something his parents do, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hold his hand again. His skin was cool to the touch. His fingers coiled delicately around yours. He finally moved his head to look you straight on, eyes meeting yours.
Thank you for inviting me, French Fires.
You stared back at him, not comprehending. But didn't it make you feel bad?
It did. When I had to think about how I was actually doing. But getting to hear that you wanted me to come made me feel good. I'm happy when you think about me, want me to be there. When I just do it and you're with me, it all feels better in the end.
Felt a tug on your hand and found Cove in the process of standing up. You joined him on your feet. What was that? Hey, give me a warning next time. What's up? You tilted your head in an unspoken question. That is very anime, girl of me. Cove smiled awkwardly, brushing some grass off the side of his pants. Now you're gonna ask me to dance, you whore! You already danced with me. I didn't think you had a good time.
It's, a dance party, right? And I think...
He trailed off, brow furrowed as if he was trying to figure out the answer himself. Nodding slowly, he continued.
I think I want to dance with you again, before it's over.
With the only words he had to explain gone, he just held up his hand to you. His expression was soft. No thanks! I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna say I want to dance with you too. Then you reached for his hand and took it in yours once more. Cove grinned, and his chest rose with the deep breath he took. You returned hand in hand, with the party reaching the end of a long evening. Dancing couples had become scarce. One pair among many were hard to notice, but now the space around you would act as a spotlight. Not that there were many left to watch you. He was still at ease, even buoyed by the dissipated crowd. This time there was a spring in his step as you walked to the dance floor together. Cove kept hold of your hand you had given him back on the little hill. Remembering your early attempt at dancing, he placed his free hand on your waist all on his own, though still with a touch of trepidation. Cove hesitated while you waited for a sign. With the song in progress before you'd stepped out to dance, there was no signal for the right moment to begin. The same thought occurred to Cove, who shrugged his shoulders, keeping form. Taking that as your starting point, you cautiously began to sway. Cove readily followed your example. You danced, wordlessly, dimly aware of the music guiding you. You were more focused on Cove, whose attention was firmly fastened on you. Unlike before, when he had nervously looked down at his feet as if trying to keep them in check, his eyes were steady. He didn't even allow himself to be shaken when your knees knocked against each other and you both briefly fumbled in step. Instead, he smirked. He wanted to take this dance in stride in more ways than one. You were utterly at peace, safe and relaxed in his presence. The little slip-up, the whole evening really, one served to underline how nothing could dent the foundation of your friendship. All too soon the song reached its conclusion. You could have continued quite contentedly for some time more. You and Cove let go of each other, though your feet remained rooted to where they had been when the song finished. You heard your name called out, and that brought the dance truly to an end. You spun to find Mom yelling for you and Cove. Beside her, Ma was shaking her head. "It's time to go home, Leonie. I had to get a hold of them somehow. What did you want me to do, sneak up on them?" Her chosen method was admittedly better than that. You still cringed at how unaware you'd been since she announced your arrival. Cove looked so embarrassed to be caught that you worried about him making another dash away from the party. Despite Cove's reaction to the scene with your moms, to you it had been a perfect ending to a perfect evening. You were so glad you got a chance to dance with Cove once more before the night was over. And it definitely was over now. You didn't need to say anything to Cove. The two of you marched wordlessly over to your parents, who were still bickering playfully. Standing shoulder to shoulder, your parents surveyed you and Cove. You wondered if they were checking that they were returning Mr. Holden's son in the same state that he'd left the house. "This was quite a night, huh, gang? Wasn't it just?" Cove managed a self-conscious smile. "Yeah." Ma was smiling too, with an expression so soft it could have cradled a newborn chick. "And how was your very first date?" "Please don't start on them already. It technically hasn't even ended yet." "Fine, fine. Well, we better ready ourselves to get back to Elizabeth. If we're lucky, the house might still be standing." "Oh, shush." She swatted your mom playfully, laughing at the comment. Cast one look at the party. You saw people exchanging farewells and suppressing yawns. Most of the faces were happy ones, despite the weariness that was starting to creep in. Cove's head was angled away from you. As you watched, wondering what he was looking at, he came around to meet your gaze. It was strange. Though it had only been a few hours of your life, you felt a little older as a result of attending the party. It was like a step away from the world of your childhood, where dressing up is reserved almost exclusively as a form of play, towards something new that you hadn't yet grasped. Turning away from the final moments of the party, you shelved that thought for another time as your moms eagerly led the way back to the car. As you and Cove trailed after them, you felt childlike once more.